There is one virtue that completely changed the course of my life. It developed me into the person you see today. And I wish that only I discovered it sooner. That virtue is humility. Without humility, you'll never be able to seek growth. And that's the whole idea of this podcast for today. Is the importance of humility and why you need it in your self-improvement journey. Well, without humility, you can't see growth because you don't think there is anything wrong with you. There's no area that needs to be improved because you can't recognize your faults and your shortcomings, right? So that's why humility is the single most important virtue of all, because without it, you cannot see the other virtues that need to be improved in your life because you would have felt as if you already have all of them and you already practice them enough and you already showcase those virtues towards others. But that is not the case. My whole self improvement journey began because of humility. It was because you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you need to improve, right? It's the whole concept and this analogy in the gym is that when you first get into the gym, you're wearing tank tops, you want to show your physique all the time and all these things. And even when I started and I was like a month in or 2 months in, 3 months in, I thought I was way stronger and had a better physique than what I actually had. And now with humility, I'm able to look at myself and be like, okay, I've made a lot of progress. I feel good about myself, but I'm still nowhere close to where I want to be. And I'm only able to recognize that because I have humility. And that's why you need humility in order to seek growth, because right from the beginning, if you don't have it, you'll never see a reason to want to grow as a person. Next point I want to make is you need to reflect on all the people around you who have zero humility. Those people are very hard to be around because they always feel as if they're perfect. So that's something that maybe you could look at someone else and apply it to your own life and ask yourself, do I act in that kind of way as well? So it's very important, my friend, that you realize that if you could kind of see what's wrong with not having humility in others, you will try your best to avoid that and not be like that as well. There's this whole concept that I totally agree with. And I honestly, this is a big way of how I learned a lot of things when it comes to self improvement. And that is, you can learn something from everyone. You can learn something from people that you want to be like, and you can also learn things from people that you don't want to be like. And that's where it comes to with humility, is that maybe you could look at someone and be like, you want to know what, that person is not humble at all, and I don't want to be like that individual as well. So a lot of times we want to look to wise people for answers, and maybe they could teach us a lot, and that is all great, and usually that's the case. That's where you get the most knowledge from. But if you can just take some time to do some critical thinking, you can look at others that you don't want to be like and learn a lot from them as well. So keep that in mind. The best part about humility is, like I said earlier, is you need to realize where you currently are and the areas that you need to grow in. This is the new year. Once again, I already released a podcast speaking about that, but if you could kind of start the year off with some humility and realize that, there was some goals that you wanted to achieve last year that didn't happen, and it was maybe because of these things, then you're able to grow from that situation and not make those mistakes again. But if you're someone that doesn't practice humility and has zero humility whatsoever, you'll find and you'll blame other people, or you'll blame reasons for why that didn't happen in your life. So that is very important part, is you need to um what's it called, you need to start with humility. That's why the title of this podcast is Start with Humility, because only once you start with humility, that's when you'll be able to set out on this self-improvement journey. Because if you're the complete opposite of someone that's very humble, you're someone that is full of themselves. And if you're full of yourself, you won't be able to find room to grow. You will think you're perfect, and once you feel that way, that's kind of where your evolution as a person just ends, because there's no need to improve, because you've already reached that rate or that level that you think is perfect. And why would you even try to improve, because it doesn't exist for you? So that's why the best thing you could do today is just start with humility. Start by growing, start by finding areas in your life to grow in. And that's when you could start to see true progress in your self improvement journey. The next point, and I did touch on this a bit earlier, is that it is the single most important virtue because it helps you realize all the other ones. Empathy, for example. Maybe you're someone that feels that you have a lot of empathy towards other people's situations. But if you have zero humility, you might think that way, but you are actually not that way because you're viewing yourself in a greater light than what you actually are. So that's why with humility, you can kind of see all the areas in your life that you are lacking in. And once you're able to see that, you could start to take some actionable steps to change and to grow from those areas. So that's why I feel as if there was one virtue that you could teach someone right in the beginning of their life, it would be humility, because then they would be able to recognize everything else that needs to be worked on when it comes to virtues. And not even when it comes to virtues, when it comes to their goals, whatever that might look like. So that's the start. And that's why it's one of the most important virtues ever. And if there was ever a book I could write in the future, once I'm someone that is successful and I'm someone that has a big platform, it would be a book about humility, because I don't think I would be reaching for the goals that I have if I didn't practice humility. I don't think I would be, you know, uh, I would give up at the slightest amount of discomfort or the slightest amount of difficulty, because when you're humble, you realize that, like, maybe you're undeserving of your reward right now because you haven't put in that necessary work and that necessary time. So that alone will help you keep pushing forward, because you recognize that there could always be more that you can be doing. And it's because you're humble, and it's because you realize that there are other people that you're competing with that are putting in way more work than you. And that's why they deserve what they get. And that's why they have the reward that you want to have. Right. And you're only able to recognize that with humility. And that's how you avoid jealousy. This is not even a point I have written down, but if you have humility, you're able to recognize why people have earned and achieved those things in their life. And you could just accept that and be inspired by them and be grateful for having those examples in your life. And then that's when you can apply it to your own life. Only through humility you could have that, right? And humility is one of those things where it's literally affected everything in my life. It's affected the goals I want, the things I chase, my relationships, friendships. All these things have all started with humility, because with humility, if you're someone that is very humble, you're not going to want to always be right, because the opposite of that is when, at least for me, when I was less humble and practiced less humility, I always cared about being right. But now I don't care about that, because I have taken the time to learn about this virtue and apply it in my own life. So that's very important as well, another aspect of why you need humility in your life. The next thing is, it's something that you need to showcase and teach to others. You need to practice humility in certain social situations so that other people could see it, and then it becomes a chain reaction. Is because they will be like, "Oh wow, you're very humble." When they think you would be cocky because the success is rolling in and you're starting to make progress in your life, they think you would become cocky, but you're doing the opposite. You're remaining humble, and that's how people get inspired by you, and that's how they start to take action in their own life, because they see you and they think you might have changed and become a different person. But if anything, you've remained the same because you've had that humility. You haven't let that success get to your head. So that's why, you got to teach by example. You got to teach by who you are, by the actions you make. If you're someone that is showcasing a lot of humility, that's going to rub off on other people. And then that's when we can kind of all live in a great community, in a sense, because people love to see humble people. The best thing you could do is someone that is very successful, ultra successful, and they have no ego. They have no, reason to flaunt themselves, because they have that humility. Even in their mind, or other people's minds, they see that success and they're like, wow, that's truly amazing, whatever. To them, it's nothing. To them, they're still working on themselves. They're still trying to improve their life. And you can't help but respect those kind of people. So that's who you need to be. That's who I'm trying to be at this current moment of this new year. Is to show a lot of humility so that it rubs off on other people. And then by extension, the people around them, it will also rub off on them. So that's why humility is so important. I want to leave you guys with a quote, and I think it's very important to kind of understand humility on a deeper level. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. That is so important, guys, because a lot of the times we could be extremely selfish with our desires, our goals for everything around us. But if we're able to have humility, we'll care about how other people feel and trying to make them feel better and to try and inspire them and not just worry about me all the time. So I think it's very important that once again, true humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less, not allowing you to get too full of yourself in those moments of success. Or not even if you don't have success, maybe sometimes you just start to develop a stronger ego and you get a little bit of full of yourself, right? If you're able to catch that at the root, that's when you could maintain that humility throughout your life. All right, guys, that's where I wanted to end it. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast and making it this far. If you enjoyed it, remember to follow us on Spotify. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Let me know in the comments what has been the most impactful episode to you so far, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody.